fronting for pimps, fronting for pornographers, fronting for Saudi Arabia, fronting for communist China, fronting for Cuba, fronting for Venezuela, and they're not fronting for you. Who's the hell is representing you? Tell me who the hell represents you in Congress. Tell me the last time you heard anyone get up there and talk about America and the soldiers and the police and the American family. Tell me the last time you heard anybody in Congress speak for you. You didn't, because they don't. The only people who do are Michael Savage and a few others in talk radio and many bloggers. That's it. That's the entire representation of the American people. The Tea Party's represented you. Did you see any broadcast on the media after July 4th? They spit on you. Those empty suits, those department store dummies without secondary sexual characteristics, like Wolf Blitzer, that piece of garbage, they don't represent the American people. They represent the criminals that run America. And they make believe you don't exist. So you get me started on Sotomayor, believe me, I can go off like a rocket. July 4th may be over, but don't get me started on this woman. She's as qualified to be a Supreme Court justice as, let us say, an ordinary lawyer in your town. That's all she is. And I don't even think she could have passed law school without affirmative action. Let me tell you that right now. Did she achieve something in her life? Yes. Did she work hard? Yes. Is she a brilliant jurist? I don't know. What did she write that you know of? Can anyone listening to this show cite one legal article that she wrote that would put her in the class that you would say, therefore, she belongs in the Supreme Court? She has written such legal opinions that are so brilliant that she belongs on the United States Supreme Court, which, by the way, is more powerful than the presidency when you think about it. You want to turn it over to this woman? Why? Because Obama says so? Because those fronts for the lowest elements in the world, called senators, want you to rubber stamp her? But what can you do? You don't live in a democracy anymore. You live in a hypocrisy. I once said you live in a hip-hopcracy. You live in a hip-hopcracy. Because the hip-hop artists, if you want to call them that, are more esteemed than are you. Last week, the king of pill-popping, I named him that on Monday, died. You would have thought that JC himself had come back from the grave and died. Did you see the vermin in the media tripping over themselves with the gold casket until eventually America made them stop it? Until eventually you were heard and said, you disgust me to the media and the politicians? When you said, are you kidding me? Celebrating a junkie like that? A child molester like that? Are you crazy? So don't tell me I don't have a relative knowledge of what's going on. I do, you don't. And your politicians are it's a shocker to me that they talk about her with such grave tones. And she's reading the script written for her by some guy with curly hair and big Coke bottle glasses who went to Columbia or NYU Law, and he thinks he's fooling the American people. You hear her talking about this? And play clip 29. Listen to this rubbish of Sotomayor reading this rubbish. Listen to this.
In the past month, many senators have asked me about my judicial philosophy. Simple. Fidelity to the law.
You're full of crap. Turn her off. It's not fidelity to the law. Then why did you turn on white firefighters knowing it was illegal? You have no fidelity to anything except your agenda, your left-wing radical agenda. You are not qualified as far as I'm concerned. Go back where you came from. How's that? Virginia, Tony, you're on the Savage Nation.
First of all, I want to say it's a pleasure and honor to finally speak with you. And being a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, your old neighborhood, Bryant Avenue, I want to tell you something. She is a disgrace. As far as I'm concerned, she should be,
Well, all right, let's leave it at that. She's a disgrace because she's not qualified, and we all know that. Everybody knows this woman is no Supreme Court material. Everyone knows it listening to her.
Nothing at all. I just want to say that, please, I don't want anybody to judge Puerto Ricans by her standards. We are hardworking people.
I know that. I know that. I know all of this. I grew up in New York, and not everybody thinks that Sotomayor represents her people any more than, let us say, certain individuals represent other races.
Thank you for pointing that out. I've been listening to you for many years. I spoke with you last, just before the 2004 elections when Kerry was a self-proclaimed hero.
Yeah. Were you in Vietnam with him?
I was there for 31 months. I said, what does that make me? And you said, you said a lot of good things. But nevertheless, the thing is, she's a disgrace.
Right, and I also happen to know, by the way, that amongst the most highly decorated soldiers in America's military history in the last 3 wars were people of Hispanic descent. I think I said that, Tony.
Yeah, just as a matter of fact, a small point of information that I discovered myself is that based on a per capita basis, Puerto Ricans have earned the Congressional Medal of Honor more than any other race in this country.
That's correct, because you come from an extremely brave group of people. And I'm so glad that you called this show so that people don't think all of a sudden that I'm attacking her because of her race, but I'm sick of having her race thrown in my face like that's suddenly a qualification.
Exactly. That's no more than tokenism. And I'm tired of that, completely tired of it.
I hear you. It's disgusting that we have to go through this at this time. But look, when we have a president who was put there largely because of his race, does anyone listening to this show believe otherwise? Are you telling me that if Barack Obama had been a white man, 100% white, he'd be president today? Does anyone listening to this show believe that? No. Thank you for the call. Chicago, Tony, you're up. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Dr. Savage, I love it when you are firing on all cylinders. And I want to tell you, after 3 weeks of being drowned with this Michael Savage, it is such a breath of fresh air to hear.
Oh, you mean drowned with Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson.
Don't think I wasn't listening.
I'm sorry about that, Doctor.
No, that's okay. You got excited. That's because I have a slight fever right now, so I'm thinking clearly. It's burning away all of the confusion. Thank you. I know the minute the show is over, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive home, and I know it's waiting for me. I can see it already. I'm shaking waiting for it. Not shaking. I can't wait. I'm going to repeat last night. It's going to be a scotch. It's going to be red wine from Italy. Then I'm going to go out to a local Italian restaurant. I'm going to eat a plate of garlic. Lunch I ate in a Cuban restaurant, by the way. What great people the Cuban people came over here. You know, the libs like it. They disgraced all the Cuban people by saying all of the people who came over on the Mariel boat lift were criminals, that Castro freed up his prisons and this and that. That was the disgrace. The 99.9% of Cubans who came over who were capitalists. He threw the capitalists out of Cuba. In other words, he threw you out of Cuba. Think if Obama declared war on you as an American business person and you had to flee America and leave behind the house that you had lived in, maybe your grandfather lived in, and leave behind your business, and all you could take was a little, maybe ship cash over, and you had to go to another country. That's the Cuban Mariel boat wave. And many people fear that this Obama, given time and power, will be exactly what Fidel Castro was. You want to know what the truth is? There's the truth. That's all. All right, let's take some callers, okay? San Francisco, KNEW. Greg, welcome to the program. You're on the air.
Hi, Dr. Savage. I just graduated from law school recently. I'm studying for the California bar right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I can tell you just from personal experience, I grew up in San Francisco, and, just 3 years of it, nothing but solid elitism from most of the professors, and nothing but contempt for actual law, precedent, for federalism.
Greg, which law school? You care to tell us?
The University of Pacific McGeorge in Sacramento.
It's very sad to hear that it's so infested with communists. I don't call them liberals anymore, Greg. I refer to them as communists now, directly. I make no bones about it. I know what a communist is. When it walks like a communist, when it talks like a communist, when it associates with communists, what is it, Greg?
I'm an immigrant from the Soviet Union. I came over with my family when I was 5, so I can completely understand what you mean. And it doesn't just stop at the lecture. They specifically target and try to ridicule and embarrass students that express any regard for conservative thought or for just the rule of law.
In other words, any white boy who stands up for conservatism and patriotism is picked on by the goon squad?
I had a professor call me Little Scalia throughout the year because of the things I would say in class.
Little who?
Little Scalia.
Oh, really? And please tell us what the professor's ethnic background was and the gender.
Actually, the professor was male and I believe Italian himself.
Well, how many times have I said if you think that liberals are limited to certain races, you're mistaken? Because I once said to somebody, I'm ashamed of Jewish liberals. They embarrass me for how far left they are. And a guy said to me, if you think Jewish liberals are bad, you never met an Irish liberal. Then I had an Italian friend who said, if you think that Jewish liberals and Irish liberals are bad, you never met an Italian liberal. They're even worse. And along came Nancy Pelosi. So there you go.
Pretty bad.
Well, Greg, One last thing as a law student. Did you see affirmative action at work?
I believe I did.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask you something. What happens when the affirmative action student hits the bar exam and they can't pass it? How do they rig that?
Yeah, as far as I know, that's actually where they can't rig it. It's the bar in California has a very low pass rate.
Well, so what do? They take a job with Jerry Brown or with Schwarzenegger or with the mayor when they can't pass the bar?
I guess. I mean, I have no idea what they do for a living at that point, but they got to do something.
Well, they can't sue anybody if they can't pass the bar. That leaves only one thing. That would be government.
Absolutely.
They got to take a job in government or become a loan broker or something. I'll be right back. Thanks for the call.
On the air, online, and on the go. This is Talk 910 KNEW.